Spain, a nation that once controlled half the globe, where the sun literally never set on its empire. From the Philippines to Peru, from Mexico to Milan, Spanish conquistadors, missionaries, and merchants reshaped continents, destroyed civilizations, and built one of history's most powerful empires. But how did a collection of medieval kingdoms on Europe's southwestern edge become the world's first true superpower? The answer is a story of religious zealotry, maritime genius, brutal conquest, and ultimately, spectacular collapse. Today, advanced AI technology allows us to transform centuries-old maps, paintings, and engravings into photorealistic recreations, bringing Spain's dramatic rise and fall back to life. Join me as we uncover the entire history of Spain, from ancient tribes to global empire and beyond. The ancient foundations and Roman conquest. Long before Spain existed, the Iberian Peninsula was home to Celtic and Iberian tribes who farmed fertile valleys, mined rich silver deposits, and traded with Phoenician merchants. The Greeks established colonies. The Carthaginians built a power base here, using Iberian resources in their wars against Rome. Then, Rome arrived in 218 BCE during the Second Punic War. Over 2 centuries of brutal warfare, Roman legions conquered the entire peninsula. This wasn't peaceful. Entire tribes were enslaved, cities destroyed, resistance crushed. The siege of Numantia became legendary, where defenders chose mass suicide over surrender. But Rome transformed Hispania fundamentally. Roads connected cities. Aqueducts brought water. Latin replaced local languages. Roman law, architecture, and culture seeped into everything. For 6 centuries, Hispania was the empire's breadbasket and treasury, producing grain, olive oil, wine, and precious metals. It gave Rome emperors: Trajan, Hadrian, Theodosius. Then came collapse. In 409 CE, Germanic tribes, Vandals, Alans, Suevi, and Visigoths, poured across the Pyrenees. Cities burned, Roman infrastructure crumbled, Hispania descended into chaos. Al-Andalus, the Islamic Golden Age. The Visigoths established a kingdom centered in Toledo, but civil wars and succession crises plagued them. Then, in 711, everything changed. Muslim armies from North Africa crossed the Strait of Gibraltar with about 7,000 troops. They met the Visigothic army at Guadalete and annihilated it. Within 7 years, Muslims had conquered nearly the entire peninsula. What followed was one of history's great cultural flowerings. Al-Andalus became a beacon of civilization. Córdoba grew into possibly Europe's largest city, with perhaps 500,000 people. Its great mosque, with forests of horseshoe arches, represented architectural genius. The streets were paved and lit at night, while London and Paris wallowed in mud and darkness. Scholars translated Greek and Roman texts, preserving knowledge that might have been lost. They advanced mathematics, introducing Europe to algebra and Arabic numerals. Medical texts written here became standard references for centuries. Philosophers like Averroes and Maimonides, Muslim and Jew working together, pushed the boundaries of thought. This was convivencia, the living together of Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities. It wasn't perfect tolerance. Christians and Jews were second-class citizens paying special taxes. But compared to religious violence elsewhere in medieval Europe, Al-Andalus was remarkably cosmopolitan. Yet, cracks appeared. The Islamic world fractured into competing kingdoms called taifas, each vulnerable to outside pressure. In the Christian north, resistance was gathering strength. The Reconquista, 8 centuries of war. The Reconquista wasn't a single war but 8 centuries of intermittent conflict. Christian kingdoms, Asturias, Leon, Castile, Aragon, Navarre, slowly pushed south, conquering territory, establishing settlements, building castles. This was holy war, crusade justified by the church. Warriors who died fighting Muslims were promised salvation. Military orders like the Knights of Santiago combined monasticism with warfare, creating warrior monks who held frontier territories. In 1085, Alfonso VI captured Toledo, the old Visigothic capital. The loss shocked the Islamic world. By the 1200s, the balance had shifted decisively. The great Christian victory at Las Navas de Tolosa in 1212 broke Muslim military power. Ferdinand III conquered Córdoba in 1236. Seville, in 1248, the great cities of Al-Andalus fell one by one. By 1492, only Granada remained, a small mountainous kingdom clinging to survival. Its rulers built the Alhambra, a palace of breathtaking beauty, with delicate stucco work, reflecting pools, and inscriptions praising God. It was the last gasp of Al-Andalus, beautiful and doomed. The birth of Spain and the discovery of America. In 1469, two teenagers married, uniting the most powerful kingdoms. Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, Los Reyes Católicos, the Catholic monarchs, would transform Spain forever. They centralized power, crushing rebellious nobles. They established the Spanish Inquisition in 1478, hunting heretics through torture and public burnings. In January 1492, their armies conquered Granada. Boabdil, the last Muslim sultan, surrendered and went into exile, reportedly weeping at his lost kingdom. 3 months later, Isabella and Ferdinand issued the Alhambra decree. All Jews had 4 months to convert to Christianity or leave. Between 40,000 and 200,000 Jews fled, abandoning everything. In August 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed west searching for Asia. He stumbled onto the Americas instead, opening the door to the greatest colonial empire the world had ever seen. Spain was unified, victorious, and poised to dominate the world. The Empire strikes. Conquest of the Americas. What followed was unprecedented. Within 50 years, Spanish conquistadors conquered empires that dwarfed Spain itself. Hernán Cortés with 600 men toppled the Aztec Empire, exploiting internal divisions and bringing diseases that killed millions. Francisco Pizarro with even fewer soldiers destroyed the Inca Empire, capturing the god king Atahualpa and executing him after receiving a room filled with gold as ransom. These weren't honorable victories. They were campaigns of breathtaking brutality. Massacres of unarmed civilians, deliberate spread of disease, enslavement on industrial scale, destruction of entire cultures. The native population of the Americas collapsed by perhaps 90% within a century, the greatest demographic catastrophe in human history. But, from Spain's perspective, the conquests were glorious beyond imagination. Silver from Potosí in Peru and Zacatecas in Mexico flooded into Spanish coffers. Galleons laden with treasure crossed the Atlantic in convoys. This wealth funded armies, built palaces, and allowed Spain to dominate European politics. The Spanish Empire expanded relentlessly. The Philippines became an Asian outpost. Spanish governors ruled Naples, Sicily, and Milan. Through dynastic marriages, Spain gained control of Portugal and its empire from 1580 to 1640. At its height under Philip II, Spain was the world's first global superpower. The sun literally never set on Spanish territory. From Manila to Madrid, from Lima to Lisbon, Spanish was the language of power. The Golden Age, art and culture. This wealth funded a cultural explosion. The Spanish Golden Age produced art and literature that still resonates. Diego Velázquez painted masterpieces like Las Meninas. El Greco's elongated figures and supernatural lighting captured mystical fervor. Writers like Miguel de Cervantes created Don Quixote, widely considered the first modern novel. Madrid, transformed into Spain's capital by Philip II, grew into a cosmopolitan center. The Habsburgs built the massive monastery of El Escorial, part palace, part monastery, a granite monument to Spanish power and Catholic piety. But cracks were appearing in the foundation. The decline, military and economic collapse. Spain's wealth was an illusion. The silver didn't stay in Spain. It paid for endless wars against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against England, against France, against the Ottomans. Spanish kings spent borrowed money fighting battles that achieved little except draining the treasury. The Spanish economy stagnated. Why invest in industry when gold and silver arrived by the shipload? Inflation soared as precious metals flooded the market. Agriculture declined. Spain imported manufactured goods from rivals, sending its silver straight into competitors' economies. Military defeats mounted. The Spanish Armada, sent to invade England in 1588, was destroyed by storms and English guns. The 30 Years' War bled Spain dry. The Dutch Republic won independence after 80 years of war. Portugal broke away in 1640. France eclipsed Spain as Europe's dominant power. The Spanish Habsburgs declined into genetic dysfunction. Centuries of inbreeding produced Charles II, so physically and mentally impaired he could barely function. When he died in 1700 without heirs, his death triggered the War of Spanish Succession. The Bourbons won the throne, but Spain emerged weakened, stripped of Italian and Low Countries possessions. Spain was still a colonial power, but no longer dominant. Napoleonic invasion and American independence. The 19th century was catastrophic. Napoleon invaded in 1808, placing his brother on the Spanish throne. The Spanish people rose in savage guerrilla warfare that cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Meanwhile, Spain's American colonies, seeing the metropole weak, launched independence movements. One by one, they broke away. Argentina, Chile, Peru, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela. By 1825, Spain's vast American empire had collapsed, leaving only Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Even these were lost in 1898, seized by the United States in the Spanish-American War. Spain turned inward, racked by political instability, coups, and civil wars. The 20th century brought the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939, a preview of World War II, where fascists backed by Hitler fought Republicans backed by Stalin. Over 500,000 died. Francisco Franco's nationalists won, establishing a dictatorship that lasted until 1975. Modern Spain, democracy and renewal. Franco's death in 1975 opened the door to transformation. The transition to democracy was remarkably peaceful. King Juan Carlos helped guide Spain toward constitutional monarchy and parliamentary government. In 1986, Spain joined the European Union. The economy modernized rapidly. Today, Spain is a prosperous democracy, a cultural powerhouse, and a popular tourist destination. The Alhambra still enchants. The Prado houses masterpieces from the Golden Age. Sagrada Familia rises in Barcelona, blending Gothic tradition with modernist vision. But Spain still grapples with its past. Regional identities in Catalonia and the Basque Country challenge Spanish unity. The legacy of Franco remains contested. The conquistadors, once celebrated as heroes, are now recognized as architects of genocide. The lessons of Spain. Understanding Spain's journey from medieval kingdoms to global superpower to modern democracy reveals fundamental truths about empire and power. Spain's rise was fueled by religious fervor, maritime daring, and ruthless military conquest. Its decline stemmed from economic mismanagement, military overextension, and the inevitable resistance of conquered peoples. The story of Spain is humanity's story writ large. Ambition and cruelty, genius and folly, triumph and tragedy, all woven together into one of history's most compelling narratives. Spain conquered half the world but couldn't hold it, proving that empires built on exploitation contain the seeds of their own destruction. If you found this journey through Spanish history fascinating, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss where we're going next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the past.